Welcome back to Cyber City. Well, it's been a long while since I've uploaded the first one, so I don't even know what it is going on here, but I might as well read this. Every day, the pink light of the sun in the east covers the city and wakes the inhabitants. People wake up and move to work like ants. They are ants like me. I'm driven by my needs to the places where I meet the needs of other people. Mold's industry emerged just a few years ago, when the power of systems became sufficient for processing. At first, the molds were a service for the rich and big companies, but gradually they began to be used in the homes of ordinary people. Standard molds are not expensive, but they require a fairly powerful system. Personal molds are difficult to manufacture. The sun never sets, it just changes colors from one to another and attaches the entire life of the city to these colors. Blue sector is time to awake. Pink sector is time to go to work. It's time to listen to people's conversations on the way to work. Time to look in the sky. Time to relax. When you create the mold, you need to collect all the data about the subject. The voice, behavior, movement. The most important thing is to create AI, which should be able to fully stimulate the human and hide all of his disadvantages. Speech defects, problems in appearance, cantankerous character. All this must be removed. It's necessary to add everything the customer finds indispensable. It may be improved appearance or modified tone of voice. This is some peaceful music. It should be the perfect copy, which is much better than the original. One color of the sun is replaced by another, checkpoint passed. Time to reach the workplace. Time to work. Time to produce work. Time to talk with colleagues. They already think I'm an equal with them. They gossip about the boss, talk about their families, they share with each other their successes and failures. Just like my job, of course. Today, they especially talk about the news that they saw on TV yesterday. It was the launch into orbit of a research ship. Objectives of the research are not specified. But after conversations, I understand that the company is directly related to these studies. I wanted to know the details of their participation, but the workers stopped talking and changed to another topic when I approached them. I think they didn't accept me fully as a colleague and they didn't want to violate company policy. And it goes that way in every company where I have worked. Nowhere did I really fit in with the team. And I left as soon as my project ended. Sometimes former colleagues wanted to contact with me, even called. But I did not answer them. I don't know why, my need for communication was minimal. The only thing that I was able to hear from their discussions is something connected with Frost, but it doesn't help me to get full information. To get off at the break, to spend a break, to think about spending an evening, to feel that today the sun is moving more slowly than usual. To feel that today the sun is moving more slowly than usual. To get back to the workplace, to entertain myself with food, to participate in the meeting. Oh, look at that conference meeting. To talk with the customer. The bulk of the work has been done already. The artificial intelligence and the prototype of the outer shell has been made. The desire of the customer was unusual. He did not want to change anything in the original object. He wanted a full copy of his wife. He wanted the copy without the basic ideal inherent to molds, the purpose for which it is necessary. He has not clarified beyond what was stipulated in the contract. We arranged a meeting with his wife tomorrow, and I would start the creating and digitizing of her image. It would not be an easy task because the customer needed an exact copy. It will not be possible to work on the flaw for the improvements of the original object as I usually did it. Anyways, the work is coming to an end. This task will not take much time. The dream about the end of the day. To stop working, to watch my colleagues leave their jobs, to say goodbye and to wish good evening to every one of them. To wait until the roads are free, so as not to sit meaninglessly in a traffic jam. To dream. People say outside of the city there are times when there is no sun in the sky. Everything becomes dark as in the room with the closed door. But the sky does not remain empty. There is another circle in the sky. It is called the moon in books I've read. It looks like a circle. While it is in the sky, it radiates the same light. But I don't have anyone who could confirm or deny this statement. Those who were lucky enough to go outside the city don't have an opportunity to disclose what they have seen. Or maybe I don't know anyone who has been there. I was so intrigued by this topic that I found some old non-digital books devoted to this issue. Covers of books don't coincide with their contents. I get a feeling they have been protected from somebody. Likely it was connected with the cleaning the sources of information held in the paper books. From these books I learned there was something like the night in the city too, but it was before the incident. The concept of the night was not described, so I have concluded that it was absolutely common with no need to explain. There was no explanation what the incident is. There was very little information in the books. Besides, the fact that chronologically it dates back to the early years. Both terms were not used even once in the digital books. That is true. I have created a modification of the system which checked each of these books. By the way, it's time to go home. To close the room. To go down the stairs. To say goodbye to security. To go outside. To decide how to spend the evening. What the hell am I supposed to do? Oh shit. Choices. Go for a walk? Since I started carrying out this order, I'd love to spend the evenings in aimless wandering around the city. Before, I did not even think that it could be some fun. The fresh evening air. There are crowds of people rushing home after work and street idlers like me on the streets. They are lost and bewildered over how the city has changed. After a long time spent in the four walls of my apartment, I stopped to recognize these streets. There were small changes in my quarter, but if you walk a couple of blocks inside, you will be caught in a very strange place filled with new houses and people you haven't seen before. It never ceases to amaze me. I often spend my evenings walking through these streets, and every time I find something new and loose, something old. Views I have never seen can appear suddenly from an old corner. A street with a dead end turned into a multi-lane road, surrounded by skyscrapers. During these walks, I feel like a tourist visiting an unknown city, exploring it with pleasure. I can't find the places I wish I could tie with my memories. There are no buildings where I've been. There are no companies where I've worked, and I can't meet the people I know. There are no traces that can explain what happened with all of them. Maybe they moved through their life like ghosts leaving no trace. And they are also looking for me and can't find any clues. They try to come to my home, but they see another high rise or high-speed highways in the place where my house used to be. They call me at home instead of hearing that this number does not exist. Maybe I moved through my life like ghosts leaving no trace? It wasn't easy to answer these questions in this constantly changing city. People I speak with about this don't know the answers, and then they disappear. Then I began to ask myself these questions. It started not long before I switched to freelancing. Though, who am I fooling? I just let my work and started sitting at home, trying to answer these questions, at least for myself. I read everything I could find in the system. I tried to find some evidence that I was not losing my mind. What information I could find disappeared after some time. There were only two alternatives. I went crazy, or the city changes faster and faster. This discovery stunned me. I was laying in the bed and stared at the ceiling. I expected to figure out the moment when the city has changed. I expected the color of the sun didn't hide the moment of the change. I closed all the windows in the flat. When I moved away to eat or use the toilet, the system used a camera and recorded a ceiling on the video in order to capture the transformation of the ceiling into something else. Change in pattern, color, or something else may indicate changes. So the days passed, then the weeks, months out followed by weeks. The ceiling hasn't changed, but my money was coming to the end. I was in despair. Of course, I knew that I behaved like a madman, but I did not want to go completely mad, so I turned on the broadcast news to hear something while watching the ceiling. Perhaps the remnants of reason had not left me. One night I lay and listened to the broadcast of the latest news, and they made the first mention of the technology of molds. Molds. I even remember how this blatant advertisement sounded in the news broadcast. Freeze yourself in this endlessly and rapidly changing reality. Book a mold of yourself and members of your families to never lose each other, and even make each other feel better. It was like a punch to the head. It seemed that the speaker gave me a wink. There wasn't a coincidence. I was sure, and my mind was inflamed by having observed the ceiling for a few months. I jumped out of bed, felt an acute pain in the whole body from lying motionless for a long time. I rushed to my desk on staggering legs. The system helped me to search through all the information of the subject. There was a little part of information at that time. This industry was just beginning its emergence. But the interest in this technology between users was like a tsunami. And I realized one thing, I'm going to do it. The second little thing, apparently I'm not crazy. If at the first mention of molds I was so interested, then other people would feel the same. I could feel the same on that. After all, the mold is the evidence that the person that was the basis of mold was revealed sometime. After all, the mold is an attempt to make something permanent beside the ceiling above the bed. I don't know if it's supposed to creep me out, but oh well. These words of the speaker were a response to the questions that led me to this condition. I became the person lying in bed and staring at the ceiling. No matter how silly it sounds, these words became a turning point in my life. I began to work a lot. I started to construct the simple molds. They could answer only to the questions that were given before. I moved farther and farther away. I started to get the first orders, and I was able to even buy a simple meal. I hadn't a great success, but it was enough for a living. I did not tell anybody about my past life, and cut off all questions with a special point in the contract. Also, I didn't tell anyone about the changes I see around myself. I still was not sure that I wasn't crazy, and if it was true, staying without a job and food would not improve my mental state. Molds calmed me. They are immutable, like the sun, and what a great proof of existence they may be, if not the constancy of this existence. The sun never changes, and I have no doubt that exists there. It also conducts a silent countdown of variable colors. It doesn't ever go astray. It changes the colors with a second punctuality. Day after day, year after year, as long as I remember, it has never violated its regulations. But back to the present after this excursion into the history of my mind. After an hour walking, I found myself in a completely unfamiliar part of the city. It appeared here at least a few days ago. I specifically always walk by one and the same route to have a chance trying to collect more information on the principles of the city's changes. The sun becomes the color of, oh my god, my ear is itching a bit. Alright, anyway, the sun becomes the color of coffee with milk at this time of the day and doesn't irritate the eyes, as in the bright daytime sectors. Looking around carefully, I saw the road winded among the trees. Trees? They are not often met in a city. It's definitely the first time I see the changes bring about new trees. Typically, changes roll up something in concrete. They delete the vegetation that was there before, and they increase the size of the buildings in this sector. It is necessary to see what can lurk in this oasis in the middle of a concrete desert. Wow, it's not a couple of trees, it's a park. Looking forward, I cannot see where it ends. I did not expect that such places can be in the middle of developed areas. I know, right? The rustle of the trees, shadows covering the road between them. The air is filled with aromas of leaves, as if I am in a real forest, only the birds do not sing. Not a single person around, which indicates that this park has appeared recently, and people are not yet accustomed to its presence. The farther I walk down the avenue, the sounds of streets around the park quieter. Step, step, that's all. There are only me and the sounds of the trees. Trees almost completely hide the surrounding houses. Warm wind blowing, sultry evening air filled with the smell of car exhaust. Explicit defect in the plan. The layout of the city always strives for the comfort of its inhabitants. And the smell of gasoline in a quiet place is not suitable for such a peaceful place. It is worth seeing this place more closely. I can find something interesting for my research. Anyways, I can relax here from work under the orange shine in Calm Alley. I have not relaxed so well for a long time. I did not like to sit or stand still, so I went down the road. The trees are replaced by other trees, branches gradually increasing their height and span. If we outlined their tops, it would resemble stair steps. The farther I walked, the sounds of the streets became quieter around, and the more I began to feel the atmosphere of the forest. I walked farther and farther without thinking about where my legs were leading me. The road was straight, so I did not have to think any more about where it would lead me. I was so relaxed and walking along absent-mindedly that when I stopped and looked around, I was surprised at the strangeness of this place. I felt paranoid of finding myself in an unknown place. Finally, I was able to relax again and overcome my fearful thoughts. Normally, I could not get rid of them in any way other than when I worked with the fields. Not the fields, molds. Trees soon replaced houses, and the highway was enveloped by the park. Although, is it the park? Judging by how far I had gone, this park can be called a full-fledged forest. My original plan was to stay on the trail until I got to the other side of the park. I had just planned a short walk after work. But the road began to climb, and I had to decide to devote the whole evening to research the park or go home because it was too late. It was getting cold. Standing there thinking I was fraught with cold, I breathed in the cold air and decided to... Oh, Jesus. Should I go back home or should I continue along the road? What if I do this? I have enough time to do my home duties, but a chance to walk in the forest in the midst of the city comes along so infrequently. Still, spending all the time in the four walls of my apartment is not necessary, but sometimes you have to go out and meet people in the fresh air. Solitude becomes so gloomy. And a public park is a good place to spend time. How many interesting people I have seen there today. There was the grandfather who fed the pigeons and laughed after each time he threw crumbs. Ah, the good old days when I was a kid, when I was like feeding ducks by giving them bread or Ritz crackers. Stop. These are not my ideas. There were no people. This place is trying to change my mind. It confuses me. It replaces my thoughts with those that it needs. Peace of mind and a desire to stay here. I must focus and look better. That surely there is something interesting. Then suddenly I came to a place that so completely interfered with my thinking. Every new place you go, after all, affects your thinking in a certain way. The city has its own ideas about where people should be and what to do and how to feel during these times. But this place is different. It is more aggressive. I did not notice where I was. The road ended and turned into soft mud, covered at the top with leaves. Boots sank in the soft muck. I walked a few meters and felt that the wind was gone. Something was wrong here. What the fuck? Have I entered into another dimension here? Okay. I think I'm gonna call it quits. Okay, it was a short video, but oh man, my throat is about to hurt a bit. So, like, comment, and subscribe, and see you guys later, I guess. Have a good one.